At first glance, it looked like a normal press conference. But when John Harbaugh was asked about Shedeur Sanders, he didn't even try to deflect with humor or coach speak. He just dodged. And that, in NFL terms, is a red flag. Insiders picked up on it immediately. Something was happening behind the scenes. The rumors already had legs, a staggering $100 million value tied to Sanders, offered up by the Ravens in a bid to secure their next franchise cornerstone. Harbaugh's silence added fuel to the fire, suggesting a deal that was either too close to mention or too messy to acknowledge.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
The value of the leak wasn't just in confirming Baltimore's interest. It was in raising questions about the league's most unpredictable young quarterback. Sanders is confident, he's talented, and he's unwilling to be anyone's backup. The Browns, understanding both his mindset and marketability, knew exactly what they had and chose to keep him. In doing so, they shifted the conversation around what teams are willing to pay and how much a young player can actually have. Harbaugh's non-answer didn't close the door. If anything, it cracked it wider open for a future play that's already reshaping front office strategy. There's no such thing as a quiet NFL week anymore, but what happened leading up to Ravens versus Browns wasn't just noise. It was a full-blown shockwave. Reports started circulating, loud, specific, and way too detailed to be random speculation. The Baltimore Ravens were rumored to have made a monster trade offer to the Cleveland Browns. The target? None other than Shedeur Sanders. Yes, that Shedeur, son of Coach Prime, college football standout, NFL newcomer with the confidence of a 10-year veteran and the arm to back it up. And the number being thrown around? Over $100 million in value. Multiple first-round picks. Young defensive stars. Veteran contributors. It was everything short of the deed to M&T Bank Stadium. The offer wasn't confirmed officially, because of course it wasn't. NFL rules keep those kinds of negotiations locked down. But what was confirmed loudly, in its own kind of silence, was John Harbaugh's reaction. When asked point-blank about Shedeur Sanders and the trade chatter, Harbaugh didn't deny anything. He didn't push back. He didn't clear the air. He evaded. And in the NFL, especially at the head coach level, that kind of non-answer might as well be confirmation. The press conference clips went viral. Analysts and fans alike dissected Harbaugh's every pause and pivot. Why did he just say no? Why talk vaguely about depth and draft strategy and development windows if nothing was happening? Because something was happening. Or at least, it almost did. Sources claimed the Ravens were serious. They saw Shedeur as a future franchise quarterback and were ready to pay accordingly. It wasn't just a whim. This was a strategic move. Baltimore wasn't trying to replace Lamar Jackson today, but tomorrow, that might have been a different conversation. It was an offer built on vision, and the Ravens had done the math. But here's where the whole thing took a sharp turn. Shedeur Sanders reportedly didn't want to sit. Despite the Ravens' interest and how badly they wanted to bring him in, Sanders wasn't willing to wait behind Lamar. He wasn't interested in being groomed for years. He wanted to start immediately, and that was non-negotiable. And that, more than cap space, roster fits, or organizational alignment, is why the trade didn't happen. From Shedeur's perspective, sitting behind an MVP wasn't a sign of respect. It was a waste of time. He knows what he brings to the table. And clearly, based on what the Ravens were offering, they knew it too. That's not ego. That's strategy. He's betting on himself. And he's not afraid to let teams know what he expects. In Cleveland, they made their decision loud and clear. Despite the offer, despite what was reportedly over $100 million in trade value, they said no. They didn't budge. Because they believe in Shedeur too. Maybe not just for his talent today, but for what he represents to their future. The Browns have had their fair share of quarterback instability. From cycling through hopefuls to dealing with inconsistency, they know how rare it is to have someone who feels like the guy. So when someone else came knocking, even with an absurd offer, they didn't flinch. That says a lot. It says they're not just interested in flipping assets. They're building around something they consider foundational. So in one moment, Three major NFL storylines collided. A young quarterback asserting his value, a contender with a vision for the future, and a franchise saying no to what could have been a king's ransom. And then came the speculation about the leak. Because it wasn't just the offer, it was the timing, the detail, the precision. The leak dropped just before the Browns faced the Ravens, just before media attention peaked, just before every microphone and camera turned toward both franchises. That's not a coincidence. That's leverage. And many believe it was orchestrated not from Baltimore or Cleveland, but from Sanders' own circle, as a strategic move. If that's true, it was a smart one. Because suddenly, Shedeur wasn't just a promising young QB on a rookie deal. He was the most talked about asset in football. His value didn't need to be proved on the field. It was set by what a team like the Ravens was reportedly willing to give up. And Harbaugh's refusal to shoot it down, that only boosted the story. Letting that rumor breathe served a purpose. It made teams around the league pay attention. It made fans rethink their draft boards and QB rankings. And it reminded everyone that Shedeur isn't just a player. He's a commodity with serious pull. This is the modern NFL. It's not just about talent. It's about narrative. And Shedeur Sanders just wrote one for the ages. The Browns keeping was more than just declining a trade. It was a statement. It said, we're not just drafting quarterbacks anymore. We're backing them. They saw his value. They knew what Baltimore saw. But they believe Shedeur fits their long-term vision better than any pile of draft picks ever could. And they weren't willing to let go. Meanwhile, the Ravens exposed something too. They've always been a future-facing franchise. They're not reactive. They don't get emotional with personnel. If they made this offer, it wasn't because they were desperate. It was because they were planning ahead. And Shedeur fit into that plan. But it also raises real questions about their relationship with Lamar Jackson. Not because Lamar's done anything wrong, but because when a team starts preparing for life after their superstar, it changes the energy. And now, that conversation is out there. Whether the Ravens like it or not, they made it public. And let's not forget, Shedeur's refusal to sit behind Lamar Jackson was its own kind of power play. It wasn't about disrespect. It was about clarity. He doesn't want to learn in the shadows. He wants the spotlight now. And he has every intention of earning it. That kind of mindset forces teams to either buy in or back off. And in this case, the Ravens backed off. But not without sending a clear message to the league. This is what the new NFL looks like. Strategic leaks. Rookie QBs setting terms. Organizations calculating massive investments before a player has even finished developing. And fans caught in the middle, trying to track a rumor that, let's be honest, felt like a bombshell dropped on a Thursday afternoon. Now, Shedeur Sanders carries more weight. Whether he stays in Cleveland long-term or becomes a future trade piece, the price is set, and it's sky-high. Teams won't forget what Baltimore was ready to give up, and that perception becomes its own kind of currency. So the next time his name comes up in trade talks or free agency buzz, you'll know where the baseline is. And it's not coming down. This was more than a trade rumor. It was a blueprint. A rookie quarterback defined his value early. A legacy franchise placed its bet. Another franchise stood its ground. And the NFL showed us all how much things have changed. So what would you have done? Should the Browns have taken the deal? Did the Ravens pull out too soon? Is Shedeur Sanders worth the drama, the buzz, the price tag? Let us know what you think in the comments. Hit that like button if you're still trying to wrap your head around this wild moment. Share it with someone who loves football chaos. And subscribe so you don't miss whatever comes next. Because if this was just the almost trade, what happens when the next offer does go through? The fact that this trade never crossed the finish line doesn't make it any less real. If anything, it makes it more impactful. Because in the NFL, sometimes the deals that don't happen say more than the ones that do. And this one, it spoke volumes. For starters, the Ravens don't do chaos. This is a team that keeps things buttoned up, strategic, and internal. Baltimore doesn't leak. They don't swing wildly. So when a story drops suggesting they offered a trade package worth over $100 million in assets for a rookie quarterback who hasn't played a full NFL season, you have to sit up. That doesn't leak unless someone wants it to. And whoever wanted it out, They knew exactly what they were doing. Suddenly, Shedeur Sanders wasn't just a promising player. He was the most talked-about quarterback in the league without having started a single pro game. And the Browns? They were now holding an asset that rival GMs were clearly willing to break the bank for. Let's take a moment to unpack that offer. According to reports, it included multiple first-round picks, younger defensive starters, and veteran assets. That kind of offer doesn't just appear out of nowhere. You don't sacrifice that much draft capital and experience unless you're trying to secure your future, right now. And not just with any player, but with someone you believe can carry the weight of a franchise. That's how highly Baltimore viewed Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur saw it differently. Because when the offer was floated, when the opportunity came to possibly join the Ravens and sit behind Lamar Jackson, he wasn't interested. He said no, directly or indirectly. Not because he didn't respect Lamar, but because sitting behind anyone was never part of his plan. And honestly, that kind of self-belief at that level is rare, especially in a league that tells young quarterbacks to earn it quietly. Most rookies want a clipboard and some time to acclimate. Shedeur wanted a headset and a playbook as a starter, right away. And that mindset, that immediate expectation to lead, was the deal breaker. Because the Ravens weren't looking for a QB to throw in right now. They were planning for life after Lamar, a slow transition that would mirror the Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes blueprint. Develop, then dominate. But Shedeur is Mahomes. He's not waiting in the wings. He wants the moment now. And that's where everything split. The trade wasn't declined because of cap issues, or because the Browns wanted more. It was declined because the player wouldn't conform to the role being pitched. That alone flipped the entire dynamic. In an instant, Shedeur Sanders had more leverage than almost any rookie quarterback in recent memory. Because not only did a top-tier team show their hand, but he responded with, essentially, I'm not your backup plan. So now, instead of walking into a franchise where he'd be expected to learn and wait, Shedeur stays in Cleveland, where the team just told the world they believe in him more than picks, more than veteran depth, and more than reshaping their roster. They passed on an offer, and in doing so, they made a commitment. They're not flipping Shedeur. They're building around him, which leads to a major shift in perception. The Browns now have a guy, not a bridge QB, not a question mark, a foundational piece. And now that pressure's on both sides, because when you turn down a $100 million package, you'd better hope the player you're banking on pans out. That's the weight Shedeur now carries, whether he asked for it or not. The Browns just passed on a franchise-altering reset, all in the name of his potential. And if you're Shedeur Sanders, that confidence has to go from mindset to execution fast. The media attention's not going anywhere. Every throw, every mistake, every decision will now be judged through a lens of, was he really worth more than 2 first-rounders and a Pro Bowl caliber defender? And let's not forget the Ravens. This wasn't just a Hail Mary. This was a calculated move by a franchise that rarely tips its hand. They had a plan. They identified their successor. They built a package. They missed. Now what? Because once that kind of interest goes public, it creates friction, subtle or not. Lamar Jackson is still their quarterback, still elite. But now everyone knows Baltimore was preparing for a world where Shedeur Sanders was the next man up. And that puts pressure on Lamar's timeline, the coaching staff, the locker room. Everyone. It's not toxic. Not yet. But it's tension. And in the NFL, that's enough to shift the season. And let's not overlook the leak itself. The timing? Days before a divisional game. The detail? Spot on. The source? Still murky. But many believe this wasn't a Browns leak. It wasn't the Ravens. It came from Sanders' camp. Why? Because it changes everything. A leaked trade rumor, especially one that's explosive, elevates a player's value instantly. Now, Shedeur's not just a good young QB with upside. He's a player that another team tried to overpay for. That becomes a new narrative. That becomes the baseline in every conversation, moving from the fact that Harbaugh didn't shut it down. That's just confirmation in disguise. He had the chance. He had the platform. He could have said, there's no truth to that. But he didn't. He gave the classic, "We like our guys. We're always evaluating response." And that in NFL circles is a polite way of saying we tried, which means Sanders' camp got exactly what it wanted. A public signal of private value. A reminder that even without the deal, he's being talked about like a franchise centerpiece. It's the kind of move that elevates his stock, not just with Cleveland, but across the league. Teams that weren't interested before, they're watching now. Teams that were hesitant, they're adjusting their math. Because Baltimore set the price. And no matter where Shedeur plays next year, the year after or 5 years from now, that number will follow him. It's not speculation anymore. It's precedent. In the bigger story, this isn't a one-time situation. This is what the NFL looks like now. Franchise quarterbacks aren't just drafted, they're positioned, managed, protected, elevated, through leaks, media pressure, strategic silence, and public posturing. The Shedeur-Sanders trade that didn't happen just showed us all how the game really works. A young quarterback can say no. A team can say yes. Another team can get caught in the middle. And the ripple effect? It doesn't stop when the trade falls through. It lives in headlines, in press conferences, in locker rooms. It changes futures. So now the league watches and waits. Will Cleveland be proven right for holding on to Shedeur? Will he live up to the value placed on him? Will the Ravens pivot to another heir apparent? Or was this their shot? And most of all, will Shedeur-Sanders continue to call the shots? This whole situation exposed something a lot of people in the NFL world like to pretend doesn't exist. Control, not just from GMs or front offices, but from the players themselves. And Shedeur-Sanders? He just grabbed the narrative by the throat without even saying a word publicly. That's the part that still has NFL insiders spinning. He didn't hold a press conference. He didn't tweet some cryptic emoji. He didn't leak a statement through sources close to the player. Nothing. The story dropped, the buzz ignited, and Shedeur stayed silent. Because when you are the story, you don't need to say anything. The Ravens made a power move. The Browns made a loyalty move. But Shedeur, he made a calculated move by doing nothing at all. And that silence said more than any press release ever could. He doesn't need to beg for opportunity. He doesn't need to fit into someone else's timeline. He is the timeline. That mentality, the kind that rattled a team like Baltimore, is the same one that made the Browns double down. They saw it firsthand. The confidence, the presence, the work ethic, the refusal to wait in anyone's shadow. That's not the kind of energy you bench behind a veteran. That's the kind of quarterback you build around. And that's why the trade never made it past the talking stage. Let's be honest. Most rookie quarterbacks, if presented with a chance to sit behind Lamar Jackson, one of the most electrifying QBs of the last decade, would jump at it, learn, develop, and wait your turn, right? But Sanders flipped the entire power structure. Not out of arrogance, out of clarity. He knows who he is. And more importantly, he knows how rare it is for a rookie quarterback to own the leverage conversation. That doesn't just happen. It's crafted, managed, leveraged. And Sanders' camp played this game better than most seasoned agents. The leak did what it was supposed to do. It created chaos, but strategic chaos. It put pressure on the Browns to choose. Cash in now, or commit to the guy you drafted. It put pressure on the Ravens. Go all in or back off and expose your long-term plan. And it put pressure on every other team watching, because now there's a price tag and it's not theoretical. It's real, it's public, and it's 9 figures worth of interest from one of the most respected teams in the league. That changes everything for Sanders' market going forward. The narrative now isn't, can he be a franchise QB? It's, which team is willing to treat him like one? Because the bar has already been set. If Baltimore was willing to throw down that kind of capital, the rest of the league has to either meet that level or get left behind. That's why the leak, the silence, and the rejection of the role in Baltimore weren't just decisions. They were statements. And let's not forget the ripple effect. In Cleveland, this solidifies the future. The Browns just told the entire NFL, we're not interested in your draft picks. We're not here to rebuild. We have the guy. That's a bold position for a team that's cycled through quarterbacks for years. And now, They've tied their long-term success to Shedeur. No safety net, no backups, no transitional plans. They're all in, which means the pressure on Sanders now at a whole new level. Every week he's on the field, the expectations aren't just rookie quarterback learns the ropes. Is this guy really worth everything we gave up? Because again, it wasn't just a few picks. The offer included established talent, veteran contributors, defensive players who could have filled immediate needs, the kind of pieces that would have bolstered a playoff run, helped manage injuries, or given the Browns more flexibility in the next 2 seasons. All turned down. That's belief. But it's also a risk. Because if Shedeur doesn't pan out, if he's not that guy, it's going to come back to this moment. This decision. The one where they said no to the Ravens and yes to the future. Meanwhile, Baltimore has to sit with the fallout too. This wasn't just about Shedeur. This was about the direction of their quarterback room, their succession plan, their approach to life after Lamar, which, again, is coming at some point. They pulled back. They didn't force it. And maybe that was the right move. But now the clock is ticking. Because you don't make an offer like that unless you see something. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Now the locker room knows. Now the fan base knows. Now Lamar Jackson knows. He may be the starter now, and rightfully so, but this entire episode has made it clear. The Ravens are thinking about life after him, and that changes things. Subtly, maybe, but permanently. It raises the stakes on every contract negotiation, every off-season conversation, every decision about weapons, schemes, and staff. Because once you start building a future that doesn't include your franchise QB, the clock starts ticking. Whether that future includes Shedeur Sanders or not, the idea has already been introduced. And Shedeur, he moves forward with leverage no rookie QB should realistically have. But he earned it through talent, through control of his brand, and through an understanding of how the modern NFL actually works. This isn't just a league of XS and OS anymore. It's a league of narratives, of perception, of value. And Shedeur Sanders just showed everyone how to control all three. So now the entire league watches. Because this wasn't just a missed trade. It was a blueprint for how quarterbacks, even young ones, can reshape their role in the NFL hierarchy before ever becoming a Pro Bowler. Cleveland made their choice. Baltimore revealed their cards. And Shedeur? He's playing a long game that might just change how the position is handled for years to come. Let us know what side you're on. Did the Browns make the right call keeping Shedeur? Should the Ravens have found a way to close the deal? Or did Sanders just redefine the power dynamics between player and team? Drop a comment. Hit like if this trade saga had you checking your phone every 5 minutes. Share it with that friend who thinks they're a GM. And make sure you're subscribed. Because if this is how the Shedeur Sanders story starts, you won't want to miss what happens next.